Okay, welcome back everybody from lunch. Hope everybody enjoyed your meal, and we've been blessed with having a lot of extra folks here for the afternoon session today. The next part that we have is a continuation of our discussions about schools, and that would include all three that we provide some funding for: Cabarrus County Schools, Kannapolis City Schools, Rowan Cabarrus Community College. We have a lot of their staff members and board members here. I am looking for Blake. Blake, you have a quorum. You're not going to do any business, but do you, or Mark, do they need to call their board to order for any reason? No? I just wanted to make sure. Okay. I didn't think you did, but I didn't want to skip over something and then you think you needed to do that. So we do appreciate everybody being here. Since we have so many people here, if you do have a cell phone with you, if you'll just double check it and make sure it's on vibrate, just in case. Commissioners, we moved this topic today from our regular meeting to the retreat. As you know, we had formal requests from Cabarrus County Schools. We have a letter. Is the letter in here from Kannapolis City Schools? Mm-hmm. Okay, you have a letter in your packet, from Kannapolis City Schools. And, of course, Rowan Cabarrus Community College has previously identified some of their needs. You have a lot of information here from these public school systems, if you flip through there, about their payroll, outlining who certified positions include, classified positions. I know you've had a few questions, so you've also got the information from Kannapolis City Schools concerning their salaries, a number of pages for that. And their written request, of course. You also have a request from Rowan Cabarrus Community College after that lists their priority list of capital projects. So what do you want to do? Let's just open it up. If you want to turn your speakers on so that you can kind of just talk when you need to or interrupt. How do you want to proceed? Do you want to ask for example, start with Rowan Cabarrus, have them come up and talk to us again about their needs, or do you have questions? What do you need to do? What are the concerns from our last meeting? Chris, do you want to start?
I think it would be important for us to hear from each of the systems and what they want to, what they have to say. So I'm not sure if they want to come up individually or.
Well, probably better, if we can do them individually, and then. I would think that they presented some stuff to us before, which we have also, but other questions or more information that we might need as we proceed. So can we call it Rowan Cabarrus Community College? Do you guys want to come up first? And we just need to make sure these microphones are on. And for those of you that have not been with us so far, yes, we're in our work session round table here, but we do want it to be kind of fluid.
Are you going to the last item?
Yes. And the reason I was going to start with Rowan Cabarrus Community College is just that we've had more discussions with Cabarrus, so I wanted to give Rowan Cabarrus and then give Kannapolis City Schools an opportunity and kind of make sure that they get plenty of time to talk to us, if that's okay with everybody. But, hello, we're glad that you're here.
Thank you.
It is informal though, so we may stop you and ask questions, or we may just have questions. I'm not real certain at this point, but. Chris, was there anything specifically that you wanted them to touch on, or just to present
their needs again?
No, I
was told that, whenever we came into this meeting, I was told that we haven't heard their request yet, so I just want to hear what the requests are.
No problem. So do you want to go over those items that you have? We have, if you'll go towards the back of that section.
Page 198.
Thank you very much. 197 is the cover on the email. 198 starts their projects, and that way we can follow along.
And I'm sorry, I know that that's included in this package, but, as I said before, I just got this last night, so I haven't had a chance to
We'd
read
love
through
to talk about the college.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
I think when Mike came over and said, you know, are you willing to present? We didn't tell you you were going to. I mean, there's nothing I'd rather talk about, so you just have to stop us, probably, as much as anything.
Thank you.
Chip, you want to introduce yourself? And
Yeah, I'm Carl Short. I'm chairman of the board of trustees.
Carol Spalding, president of Rowan Cabarrus Community College.
And Janet Spriggs, Chief Financial Officer.
So we're delighted to be with you today. Really appreciate your planning and thoughtfulness as we look to the next, I guess, 5 years. The community colleges in North Carolina, as you know, have great reputations for doing workforce development. Every county is different because the resources that have been provided are different. So in this county, we have 3 campuses, and we have the research campus, which is not funded. So it's off the table. We don't ask for money for that. It's doing an amazing job with our nursing and biotechnology program. What we are asking for is a look to the future. And we have a small campus at Exit 55, and we know that community colleges' futures are linked with their communities. And we know that Cabarrus County is one of the strongest counties in the state. And yesterday at a meeting on real estate, there was a presentation about how counties are faring in the recovery. And Cabarrus is poised to do great things in the future and really is a great location for new and expanding business. So I don't know that that's news to you, but it's great to be in context and to look at the first view was the world, then the United States, then the state, and then all the way down to Cabarrus County. And so it's really important that Cabarrus County and our community college that supports it and vice versa can prepare our workforce. And those are people coming out of the K through 12 system, which is strong here, very strong here, and going into the community college system. So mostly what we do is transfer in this community. We do the first 2 years of college that could transfer on to UNC, Charlotte, or other places. But we've recently, as a matter of fact, 3 weeks ago, moved our electrical program from North Campus to the Cabarrus Business and Technology Center, CBTC on 29. And that was a $350,000 investment to move those programs, to create an opportunity for those programs to potentiate the HVAC program that we currently have, and also to better utilize that space. So we have made a commitment to Cabarrus County in what we think is a very important and growing area. The whole area of engineering transfer is critical. Those jobs are wonderful. They will transfer to the University of Charlotte. So we are trying to put some of the jobs for the future and reposition those. We're looking at that all the time. And as we do, we had a bond issue in Rowan County in 2010. That's now going through we're in the mud and the construction stage of that, but it's going well, and we are helping look to the future in healthcare. That's our major emphasis on that new building there. But as we look here, we think advanced technology, advanced manufacturing are really important. If you look at the materials that have come out from the Department of Commerce, and one came out yesterday, I was just reading it in the back here, the workforce area is very important, and the advanced technology is one of the major emphasis for North Carolina. And so our other community colleges in this 9-county area around Charlotte either have an advanced technology center, an advanced manufacturing center, or are going to build one. They already have their plans. Frankly, they're ahead of us. And certainly you can't touch Central Piedmont in Charlotte. They passed a $220 million bond issue. The county gave them an additional $70 million. I mean, they are light years ahead of us. So I will say that they are building a cosmetology program and came to visit ours because ours is so successful. So, you know, it's not always about the building that you're in. Sometimes, actually, it's more important that the program is wonderful. So I will tell you that. But in any case, we need to position this county to be able to train the workforce, or we won't be able to bring those jobs here. People want to stay in Cabarrus County. They want to stay in Rowan County. So we want to provide the jobs and education there. So our first priority is Advanced Technology Center, which is the 4th building out of our master plan that we've had on for a number of years. And we put the budget number at $12 million there. It's a 60,000 square foot building. We have some other details we can go into if you'd like to hear more about that. So that's our first priority. I think it's really important for this community to have that. We've got a very good and growing number of arrangements with our school system. We could have more in the engineering area and advanced technology or materials construction, nanotechnology, mechatronics, and many other programs that we could build together. So we feel like that you have to have specialized laboratories for those. You can't just plop them anywhere. So we really have to build a building that's flexible enough to take the new technology that comes in. So that's our first one. And I'll go through them, and then you can ask questions or chime in however. Our second one comes from a conversation with DOT almost 2 years ago probably, where we've talked about having a second exit for South Campus. Wednesday, we had a bomb threat at Cloverleaf. I don't know if you knew that. We had helicopters and all kinds of things. Somebody left an empty package in the parking lot of a generic public area, but we had to do a lockdown. And we also have to put it on our scorecard now for our problems with safety at the college. We know that it used to be impossible. Nobody ever had a problem at community college. We never had a bomb threat, we never had a fire, we never had anything. That's not true anymore. So we think we need a second exit out the back of the campus, because both exits from the campus go onto Trinity Church Road, which is a short segment that we share with Shoe Show that has big trucks going through and other things. We are not sure how that intersection at exit 55 is going to work. Still don't know how that is going to work. Doesn't matter, because all of our exits come out and are going to sit there. So we think we need another exit out of the campus for safety and security reasons. There's an estimate of $1.7 million for that, because it means requiring some property and building the road out the back. So we think that's a high priority. DOT might even help us with this because they're part of our issue. So we could go back to them as well. But we want to let you know that this is a 3.5 acres totaling about $350,000, and it's a big area of concern for us. Our third item is our additional land for South Campus. We have a small 23-acre area for this campus, and then we have some land that's not used behind us. And generally, if you don't acquire that land when it's not developed and cheap, you won't ever be able to get it. So we think that thinking ahead, we ought to purchase property for the future expansion of Cabarrus and the community college, Rowan Cabarrus in Cabarrus County, to make sure that we can accommodate the growth for the future. So I think that that's a really important thing. That, or we ought to look at another location somewhere in the county for some future growth. But these things don't turn up overnight, and this county is growing. You've already seen it in your K through 12, and what will happen after that is the adults are going to start coming back. So I think if you're looking ahead, this is what you ought to be looking ahead at. And I think that both of these two, the additional exit and the possible additional land, could actually be together. So those are our three primary capital projects requests. And then you'll see on the following page, if you flip over, some renovations, some uplift for CVTC vocational programs, and a potential three different scenarios for automotive training, and then emergency services training. So I can talk about those during your Q&A time if you'd like, but let me pause now before I take all the air in the room and just be able to answer any questions.
We had discussions over a year ago, I think, about cosmetology at Cloverleaf, and I apologize because you probably said it and I just missed it. Is that in here to do that building, or which item does that one fall under?
Mike, can you want to address that one? Never mind.
Is it in your packet?
Yeah, it's not on this page.
Right.
Okay, I didn't see it on
it's
this
in 2000.
page.
It's not in the. It's currently in the budget for $1.5 million to do that for 2015. We're on a timeline of about 18 months to settle it, and we're well on our way to looking at our options and coming back
Okay, I just
with a
wanted to make sure
plan.
that, because we had
Oh, yeah.
talked about this before, that we were addressing it, so
Yeah.
that's fine. But when I didn't see it here.
Yeah.
And I knew that we've talked about it, so I just wanted to make sure that we didn't.
Oh, it's critically
Something had
important.
not changed with that particular program.
It's critically important. It got a whole lot more important on Wednesday. Yeah.
I'm sure that it did.
I don't see that in our packet. The cosmetology. I know we've discussed it.
It's in, well, that request is already moving through your capital improvements plan and is slated for next year.
Okay.
So it's not repeated.
197. There's a email from Pam, from Janet to Pam on page 197, and it's in the first paragraph, first full paragraph.
And I think we did not put it intentionally on this spreadsheet because we thought it was in the CIP budget already, and that's why it's not here on this page.
But we'll be glad to talk about cosmetology.
No, that's okay for it not to be on there. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something, because I was
No.
reading them to make sure that was one I was looking for. 'Cause
Absolutely want
I
that.
definitely believe that something needs to be done for that
Yes.
location.
Correct.
And that we need to be looking at it and figuring out how it's going to go forward, so.
Thank you.
But yeah, I just want to make sure I didn't miss something. and
Appreciate
that we
that.
weren't missing a page or something like that. It's all right. So questions that you have, Steve, you are on their board.
Yes.
So I know you know more than we do about what goes on probably at the community college, but
That's
anything you
debatable.
want to add? Well, there you go. I will not debate that with you. I don't
Yeah.
know if there's anything you want to add or anybody else,
I
feel
think
free to
Dr.
jump in.
Spalding did a good job of giving a good overview of what's going on in Cabarrus County, particularly with the college. The more I learn, the more impressed I become about the services that are being provided to students here, and the importance of it to our existing business as well as potential recruitment of business. I've got some issues here. I think we talked about the exit and the additional acreage last year also.
Yes.
And so I'm assuming there's been no change in the potential availability of that property.
No change.
But that will change at some point. We just
Price
don't-
will keep going up. I believe.
Exactly, and to guess when that might be, I think it's like I continue to say, everything we do here is crystal ball work, trying to guess and predict the future, but, I think they're certainly worthy of discussion, and I'm sure we will be. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. We are welcome to a tour anytime. If you want to go see the new electrical program, we'll make that happen. We're having a big scholarship fundraising luncheon on the 28th of February. I hope you will get an invitation shortly. We're raising a lot of money for students to go to school. And we also have our our first big campaign to raise money. And part of the raising of the money is to outfit the Advanced Technology Center. So if there's no Advanced Technology Center, we won't be raising money for the equipment that goes with it. So this is part of a package deal for us, and it's an important part of our future. And there'll be some private money invested in this because we feel like we can raise money for it, and we should go to those businesses and ask for equipment. We can go to others and ask for, faculty support if we need to. We don't get any faculty support or any supplements from this county, though I know you do that for K through 12. And we've got some other smaller needs that are encompassed in these other requests that are here. So I know this won't be the only time we'll be together. I suppose we'll still do the other appointment that we have with you. And if there's other future questions, we know we have time for it. But just be aware that we will be raising money in our case for support for the Advanced Technology Center, and that paper, I think I've even got a copy of it with me. We're calling it Planning Bravely, and the Advanced Technology Center is front and center for Cabarrus County as being a major effort that we'll raise money for. So I think the combination of the two will really put Cabarrus County in a strong position. So I think I'll end with that, just to let you know we're looking at grants, we're looking at private money, we come to you. The state can't pay for this, and we appreciate your support. And thank you for giving us Steve for the board. Appreciate that. You have anything else?
Anything else, guys, on this? did, Jason?
Dr. Spalding, I'd just say I got a chance to come up and speak with you on, I guess last week, but I really do appreciate the fact that you're looking at all sources of revenue in terms of putting this building together. And I do think that it's important that we work on it, and I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will add that Carol has done a great job for the college in finding resources. The building that's on North Campus, it's undergoing renovation. In addition to the $12 million bond money that we have there, she's found another $3.5 million to add to that from grants. So she does. I'll give her high marks for that. And the other thing I'll mention about that building is, from the beginning, that campus was designed for 5 buildings. We're still at 3, and with the growth in the student population from Cabarrus County, that 4th building is badly needed. So I just echo everything else that Dr. Spalding has said, and we appreciate the opportunity to meet with you today.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, well, let's look at, see if the fine folks from Kannapolis City Schools would like to come up. I don't know who all you have. I mean, I know 3 of you guys are here. If you've got anybody else.
No.
Okay. And I'll just say that I had spoken with Danita, and she had a funeral that she needed to go to from family. She was planning on being here, or friend of the family, and so the thoughts go out for that family, and I'm sorry that she wasn't able to join you today, but I thought I'd say that because she had contacted me about not being able. She was planning on coming and couldn't get here, so. So anyway, do you guys want to talk about we've heard from you before, but remind us of the projects that you have and where you are and what you need. And we do have we don't have a proclamation from Kannapolis City Schools commissioners, but you do have a letter request from them. I guess that's the best way of putting it, so. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm Todd Adams, Chair of Kannapolis City Schools Board of Education. This is Dr. Buckwell, Assistant Superintendent, and Will Crabtree, Director of Finance and Operations. And I'm going to let Will speak to our needs.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you all for letting us come and address our needs with you today. Our number one need, of course, as it has been for a few years, is the new middle school. I won't go into all the semantics of what it would do, but it essentially would free up the overcrowding we have at the elementary level. One thing I want to point out about the new middle school that I had some talks with the city of Kannapolis about any kind of potential issues this week. Where the site is, we could possibly have some road issues. Azalea is a city-maintained street. That is where the entrance to the school would be. Oakwood Avenue is where the existing entrance to the current middle school is, but there will be connecting campuses. And then we have the intersection of Oakwood and Rogers Lake, which could, in fact, need improvement. What the city encouraged me to do was to have some traffic studies done at those 3 locations to see what the impact of that would be. So that's the only word of caution I have with that, is not knowing what type of improvements we might have to do at those 3 locations. That could change the amount. So just want to be upfront about that. The repaved parking lots, that's very critical at A.L. Brown. We have lost a lot of our parking lot, or not a lot of it, but portions of it. We had a sinkhole develop in one of them, and we have multiple dips in them. So we really need to go and completely redo both of those parking lots. And the parking lots I'm talking about, if you're familiar with the A.L. Brown campus, are across the street, the large parking lots that are beside Trinity Church. Jackson Park Elementary School's gym addition and Woodrow Wilson Elementary School gym addition, those are the 2 schools in Kannapolis City Schools that do not have gyms. every other school does, so we would be asking to add gyms to those sites. The McKnight Child Development Center addition is a pre-K center, but we've outgrown our building there, and we have quite a bit of land there that could be used to expand that center. And then the A.L. Brown High School field facilities would be upgrading the field facilities at of course, A.L. Brown High School. Those are our priorities from a standpoint of $200,000 or more. We have quite a few priorities that are less than $200,000, and I think the major priority there would be funding of technology. We have done a lot over the last few years, and we've developed a great partnership with the Cabarrus County group who are here. So we've worked very closely with them, and I think we've developed a plan for technology that everybody feels comfortable with, that has been vetted by the Cabarrus County staff. The only issue now is we need funding to implement it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's about $500,000 a year. $500,000 a year to implement this plan to bring technology to an acceptable level within Kannapolis City Schools. So I just want to put that out. That is an extremely high priority for us. I know it's an extremely high priority for Dr. Kane. She's very passionate about technology and having adequate technology in our schools. I also touch on the 1.5% increase for staff. That's just such an important thing for staff morale. As you know, over the last few years, especially teachers have not received any kind of increase or raise. I think it's going on 6 years now. So as other states in our region have increased pay, we have decreased. Now I know I'm asking the local government about this, and it really is a state priority. So and I recognize that, but anything we can do from a local standpoint would go a long way into increasing the morale for our staff. Turn it over to
Will, can I ask you one question on your
Sure.
numbers? What is your capacity at that new middle school?
That capacity is going to be 1,000 to 1,100, I believe. Yeah.
Can you explain the concept of the whole switching and behind that, building the middle school?
Sure.
And what you would do with the current middle school and how that tied in together, just as a refresher?
Sure, sure. Currently, we have 5 elementary schools, 1 intermediate school, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. What we would do is convert the existing middle school into a second intermediate school. In doing that, our elementary schools right now are K through 4. And we would move the intermediate schools to a 4, 5, 6 and just have K3 elementaries. And then a 7, 8 middle. And then high school would stay the same. So effectively what that does, it pulls a grade level out of our elementaries now that are overcrowded. And also what that does, it makes it a better transition for our students. We have noticed that the 4 to 5 transition has been very difficult. The 3 to 4 transition seems to be easier. It's done in other systems, most notably and closest to us, Mooresville City has a transition at 3 to 4. So we think it works for us from a facility standpoint, and it also works from a curriculum standpoint, as it allows us to better vertically align the curriculum across the grades. So.
I just want to make sure, I mean, I know we've talked about this, but it's always good as a refresher to explain why you were kind of moving around, and that takes care of your cohort. Cohort would be the grade level when they start in kindergarten, and as that group keeps moving through the system, that's a cohort. And then the next year, the next grade is a cohort, and so forth, and they track the cohort numbers. They track that age group as they move through the system. So that's one of those education terms that not everybody knows what a cohort is, so, but that's why they're looking to help out really across the board.
Correct.
By shift, well, all but the high school, because you really wouldn't shift at the high school.
High school
but-
essentially stays the same.
Yeah,
yes,
you're shifting the other ones. And in high school, typically, your freshman class is your biggest, and your senior class is your smallest, because mandatory attendance is up until age 16. Most high school seniors are 17 going on 18, so depending on where their birthday falls. Students can stay in K-12 public schools until they're 21. But once they have a birthday, their 21st birthday, wherever that falls, that would be due to retentions and different reasons, they can't stay after age 21. Correct? That's still the truth?
I believe so.
Okay.
Correct.
I just want to make sure I had that right, so.
Yeah, another thing that Dr. Buckwell just reminded me of is with the new middle school, our existing current middle school, when we started building it, we were building it as really an intermediate school. So we left a lot of the lab structures and things like that, which are so important to STEM education now today out. So by building a new middle school, it would allow us to build a school that has all those features and availabilities. So that's another important reason of why the new middle school.
And you have the land for the middle school, so
We
you're not
own the
asking
land.
for any money for land. That's,
No.
the amount you have there is, I just want to make sure I heard right, is for the building, and then there is the potential that there would be some road work that you have not been able to quantify yet. Is that right?
That's true. I would hope that we could do all of it for that.
Okay.
That'd be my wish, but I just wanted to be upfront with you about that potentially changing.
Will, and one other question that I had for you, I think on a previous version of this, I had seen a remodel of your current middle school so that you could move it back to intermediate school, I believe, for about $1,080,000, something like that. I don't see that on this list. Do you still have those needs?
Under the new plan, the plan has changed a couple of times in the last 3 or 4 months probably. Under that plan, we would not have those needs. We would be able to function without doing that.
So realigning the grades changed that.
Correct.
So.
Mhm.
And I just want to touch on technology briefly, if I could. We certainly appreciate the partnership we've had with the county. That's been a great thing for us. Technology, as Will mentioned, it's very important to Dr. Kane, and that's how our kids learn today. It's the world they're in. They live with technology every day, and that's how they learn. And I think it's important for us to be able to teach them the way they learn. I was also remiss in mentioning that Dr. Kane is out of town. She would be here otherwise, but she could not change her travel plans. And but we certainly appreciate being here today, and thank you for all you do for us. Any other questions?
Any other questions or anything that you need to get from them to have better understanding? I mean, it's kind of a review. We've gone through this before, I know, but, as you said, things change all the time, and it's the only way we can keep up to date on it. So, yeah, Chris.
Yeah, now I know we've seen these lists a couple times, so I appreciate, what you guys are doing, and thanks for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
And as Dr. Spalding said, you guys are welcome anytime. Anytime you want to pay a visit, our doors are open for you. I know, Jason, you've been...
Yeah, I was going to clarify, if someone wants to come visit, who contact you? Contact
Dr. Kane, if they would, please. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a good idea for principals might wig out if we just show up. So if you want to go visit any of these, contact her office, and then she can arrange that for us. Okay, Cabarrus County Schools, Dr. Shepard and Blake, and I don't know if you got Kelly. Kelly, you slipped in. I missed you back there. You've got a number of staff members, and we can bring more chairs up if we need to. And actually, this is on the agenda, Commissioners, just because we moved it to this from our last meeting. So we do have resolutions, specific resolutions from Cabarrus County Schools that are still available for us to consider, and of course, any other questions that you might have. We've got a lot of data in the packet, and I don't know if you have had enough time to look at the categories and everything else and what kind of questions you might have. So, so you might have a preference. Do you want them to present their resolutions to us again? Do we want to just have dialogue? Does anybody have a preference?
I know we seem kind of speechless, but and we heard your presentation at the last work session, and we really appreciate that. And I have looked over some of the salary information and some of that. I was under the impression that we were voting on this information today, and apparently that's not the case. So I do apologize for.
If you make a motion, we vote on it.
I think we were under the impression that you were doing that as well.
Well, somehow there's been some miscommunication, because I was under the impression that we were going to vote on it, and then conversations with the county managers that we're not, so.
When Jason asked me yesterday if we were going to vote on it, and I said, I don't know, if somebody makes a motion, then we're voting on it. So I
Right.
wasn't pressing anybody's hand, but Robert's Rules of Order, we can do anything that guys
Apparently, we're
wanna do.
waiting
Well,
for some
Unless you wanna
information.
interject.
I've got more questions, so
Yeah, go.
I would like to go through a bunch of questions. I really sat down and looked at the information that they gave me, and I'd like to go through that and ask some questions and get some answers, and then we can continue this discussion and think about it. So if nobody else has a preference, I'll go ahead and ask my questions. I wanted to go through, I guess we'll talk about the new school. Commissioner Meesmer and I went out to Mount Pleasant this week. We went to Mount Pleasant and we went to Royal Oaks. And I think both of us were tremendously concerned. As I think most people in Cabarrus County have seen now, the picture of Winkler Middle School, tremendous funds were spent there. And what bothers me is that at Mount Pleasant, they literally have bathrooms with toilets with no stalls. And so we are asking preteens and teenagers, if they have to go to the bathroom in a bathroom with no stall. And it's right in the middle of their changing area in their PE. And we have this focus on bullying, and I just think that you couldn't help but bully somebody after they sat and went to the bathroom in front of you and had to do all their business. And it concerns me greatly that that has been accepted out there for several years while we have built translucent roofs. I think that Mount Pleasant and Royal Oaks needs to be much more of a priority, and we need to get those things fixed immediately before we build a new school. And part of that is I looked at capacities, and this is your ORED study. And the first thing that I thought was a little bit interesting in the ORED study that I noticed is it doesn't add any capacity for the charter schools. It adds the ADM for them, but it doesn't add any capacity. If you look down the left-hand column, 2012-13, under CCS totals, it says we have 14,564 for capacity. Cabarrus Charter Academy comes in, and on the right side of that, we use that for our projection. We use it for our ADM, but you come back down to the capacity, and it's still 14,564. So I find that to be a little bit misleading. The 600 that goes in for ADM also should go into capacity, which means we should have 15,164.
Commissioner, if I may, I'm not sure I understand when you're saying ADM, I'm not sure I'm following you. The 600 that we're showing at the bottom all the way across?
Yes.
Those are 600 students.
Right.
The 3.9.
So we count the students, but we don't count them as capacity. So they are.
Oh, that number doesn't subtracted.
So-
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yep. So for instance, in 2015, we have 13,709 students, plus 600 students from Cabarrus Charter Academy to get us to 14,309. But we count the students from the Charter Academy, and we don't count the capacity for the Charter Academy. So it looks as though we're more full capacity than we truly are. CCS totals is the same on the capacity, whether you include Cabarrus Charter Academy or not. It's still 14,564.
Okay, I guess I'm still not following you. What we're showing across the bottom is we expect to lose 600 students to the charter schools. But if we don't lose those, the bottom number is how many we're going to have to house.
Right.
The top is actual numbers based on the study. We look at the bottom, we're projecting, we think 600 are going to leave. If they don't leave, those are going to be dispersed all the way through every other school, all the way up the list. We don't know where they're coming from or where they're going to go. We just expect 600 students from Cabarrus County to choose to go to a charter school. So all we're showing here is an enrollment of each school, and I'm on the elementary schools at the top.
If you look at the total for 2015, 2016, and you show that as 14,309 down at the bottom, and then you've got 14,564, you're showing a capacity of 200 and change there, right?
Well, this isn't capacity. These are actual numbers of students. Capacity is is over to the left.
Right. For 2015, it's not actuals, it's projected.
Well, in the green column, the 14-15, we expect it to be 13,440.
Okay,
With a loss of 600. If we don't lose 600, it's 14,040.
Okay. So our true capacities then are the top numbers, because you are losing 600, right? They're full. Cabarrus Charter Academy's full. They had a waiting list, correct?
I don't know.
Okay. So let's look at,
Okay, yeah, just for clarification, they do have a waiting list, but they didn't all come from Cabarrus County.
okay. 2015, 2016, it shows that we have 13,000. This is the year that the new school would come online. 13,709 students. And we have a capacity of 14,564, which means we have 800 student capacity available in 2015-16 throughout your system, assuming that those 600 go to, right. And then also we have ACE Academy is coming on board, which is going to add 174 students. And Bradford is coming online, which is going to add 195 students. So that means in 2015.
Where's that? I don't see that.
Oh, I called them.
Again, they're not necessarily Cabarrus County students, citizens.
Bradford's in Mecklenburg now, I understand.
Actually, on their application, and I called them and spoke with them, those are Cabarrus County students. They split it up by LEAs. I actually have the applications here. I can show it to you. They have double that. They figured 50% was coming from Cabarrus County, 50% from
Madam Chair, I can say we did not come today prepared to debate charter schools with you, but we certainly can set up a time in a meeting where we can do that. We're very proud of the fact that a number of our students that have left and went to the Charter Academy are now back with us, and we don't have that funding. That funding resides with them. You certainly hold us responsible for making sure that we have a seat for every child that attends Cabarrus County. If they choose to come back mid-year, which they can do it any day, you have to have a place for them to go to school. And so you can't rely on an application from an institution that says they want to recruit our students, because we're not going to lose those students. They did not take 600 of our students. In fact, I think that number's probably well down in the 400s now, and I am convinced that with our magnet programs that we put in place, providing choices within our system, that will continue to be the clear choice for students in Cabarrus County. So I wouldn't base any projections on what a charter school might think they could recruit or might want, because we're responsible for providing a place for those kids to go to school.
Well, I am not here to debate charter schools, but I am here to talk about capacity, because that's an issue that we have to fund. And if you've got 1,200 in 2015, 2016, and what concerns me is you've asked for $21.5 million to replace Royal Oaks at 1,000 students, and you've asked for $21.5 million to build a new school for 1,000 students.
Commissioner, I don't believe we've asked for a specific dollar amount to replace Royal Oaks.
Well, as I sat through your board meeting, I heard you talk about the fact that it was $21.5 million, so if you want to say it's a different thing.
That's a whole different conversation than that we've come here requesting a specific dollar amount to replace a school.
Okay.
If we've talked about it at our board meeting in very general terms, we might have a number we think goes with Mount Pleasant, we might have a number we think goes with Royal Oaks. As we're discussing items that we potentially might have to deal with and might have to come over here, and if we're going to talk about capacity and where we are in funding, and you're right, you do have to fund that, but again, we haven't specifically asked you for that. What we have specifically asked you for was funds to construct a new elementary school based on what we've seen in this report and the background experience of what we know we currently have at Cox Mill and Odell. And that's what, we've got 3 specific asks.
Well, you've asked us
one of them
for
is the new elementary school.
2 elementary schools at 1,000 students each, and you want us to go borrow the money for that. And my point here is that would have-
Again, I haven't asked you to go borrow money. That's up to you. The 5 commissioners decide whether you borrow or pay cash. We don't have anything to do with it. That's not our role. Our role is not to
You didn't
fund.
pass a resolution requesting that we borrow $60 million?
We passed a resolution giving you a tool that if you so chose, you could ask the voters of Cabarrus County to have a bond referendum. Our legal counsel told us you can't even consider that. If we don't ask you to do it, we put a tool in your toolbox. Whether you do it or not, that's up to the 5 commissioners. That's not up to us.
So you have no preference whether we borrow the money or not?
I have no preference whether you borrow the money or not. If you can pay cash, great. I hope, if that works, fantastic. What I'm worried about is the seats that you see in red at Cox Mill Elementary and Odell, where we currently are over capacity and can't provide what we think we need to provide for who's there now and what's current, what's projected to come. And
I'll get to those specifically.
Okay.
But what I'd like to talk about now is on a global perspective. You would like a 1,000-person new school, and you would like to redo one elementary school. I think it's Royal Oaks. And that school has about 300 students, which means to build that at 1,000 students, you're going to add 700 more. So we have a capacity of 1,200 in 2015-16, and to add 1,700 means we're going to have 3,000 open seats, and we are rushing out to do that instead of working over at Mount Pleasant and fixing Mount Pleasant?
Well, again, I don't think our board has ever said we would rather do something at the expense of Mount Pleasant. And I really don't appreciate you bringing that up specifically to say somehow that our board doesn't care about Mount Pleasant Middle School. I think that's being a little disingenuous to our board. If we have seats that are showing up as empty across the county, and Bethel's the biggest example. We're not perfect. You guys aren't perfect. I was not on the board when that facility was planned, bid, or constructed. Everybody thought Bethel was going to grow at a fairly rapid rate. The new school got built. It hasn't filled up. They currently are trying to get more water and sewer service in that area of the county. I don't know where that stands. It's going to fill up one day. It's not there yet. But to take those seats and then transfer that across the district and say, well, see, they're just adding 2 empty seats, I don't think you can do that correctly, because you've got individual schools with individual districts that go to those schools. And just because one school across the county has less capacity than another one that's miles and miles away, the math may work. You may say, well, we got 100 here and 50 here, and we meshed together, we've got 150. By pure location, I just don't think that's a reasonable way to look at that.
As I mentioned, I'll get to the specific schools and the ADMs at the specific schools, but really for this purpose, to introduce this issue, I wanted to talk about it from a global perspective. We are going to go, your request is that we spend $21.5 million on a new school and another $21.5 million on another elementary school. And that, however we fund it, will create 3,000 students of capacity. And on this ORAD, you never hit filled up at that 3,000. The most that you ever have is 15,009 students, which means in 2022, 2023, you're only adding 1,200 students total in the next 10 years. So why would we go out and press forward building 3,000 capacity?
Again, I think the answer is purely based on math looking at the entire county. You can, that's an argument that can be made. We don't get to staff students like,
Okay.
We don't get to staff students in the schools based on the number that we have countywide. We have to do it per district.
Sure.
And if I look at the study, and we see that Cox Mill is 300 students currently over capacity, and Odell is currently 100 students over capacity, and those numbers aren't going to get any better. That's what's leading us to believe that that's where we need to go.
What school is next to Odell?
Harrisburg Middle.
Well, what elementary school?
Boger.
Well, and we've already done a temporary redistricting, taking kids out of Odell and put them to Boger.
The school next to Odell, which is Boger, has 238 students available, right next door. The school next to Cox Mill, the other one that you mentioned, is Carl Furr. Carl Furr has 266 students available. So again, are we going to run right out and spend $43 million when we've got capacity in the schools right next door? See, I don't think we're using our capacity, and then we're building to an overcapacity, all at the same time while we're ignoring our older schools where we've got children that are really, we are not meeting their standard needs. And instead of focusing on the fact that we are not meeting the standard needs of some of our kids, we are rushing out and building these big glamorous facilities. And that's problematic to me.
Well, on the issue of rushing out, we've had this conversation for, I don't know, we tried to look for land, it's been 8 or 9 months. We were told we weren't going to build a new school for 5 years. We haven't done that, so 5 years into it, I don't think we're rushing out to do anything. I think we're assessing the need that we have. The other thing you have to remember is that, again, I'll bring up district lines of where people live and where they buy houses and where they've gone to school and where they've lived and why they may have moved here for a specific school to go and do what I think I hear you saying is a countywide redistricting. That's a very dangerous proposition. And
I'm not talking about a countywide redistricting. I just
well,
want
if you bring
to
up
utilize.
Bethel and you bring up Odell in the same conversation.
I didn't bring up Bethel. You brought up Bethel. I brought up Boger and Carl Furr, and those are right next door to each other.
Fair enough, but Bethel's in the mix because if you're going to talk about undercapacity, Bethel's one that is under capacity.
See, I didn't bring up Bethel because that wouldn't have been fair. I wanted to be fair to you.
Oh.
These Boger and Furr are right next to each other. Bethel has 400 students, but it's way out in the southern part of the county. Kids from Cox Mill can't go to Bethel. That doesn't make any sense. But it does make sense for some of them to go to Boger or some to go to Furr, and that's why I brought those things up to you.
And we have currently done that.
Well, there's still 70% capacity at those two schools while we're talking about building a new school in the area?
I don't believe the ORAD report takes into account how many students we sent to Boger.
That's correct.
Does Dr. Louder have that number?
We sent 150 from.
Current enrollment numbers?
That's fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, just in general terms, we did, this does not,
I would like to know
Boger
what-
currently has 824 students. And Carl A. Furr,
What's the capacity of Boca? 1,000?
920. How many?
920.
924.
So you're only 100 short.
We're 100 short.
And you have Kells Water just north of that that's growing now, so it would make sense to redistrict students into that school, knowing that then you're going to have to turn right around and move them back to to another location because that community is growing. So I want to address your first point that you made, Commissioner, Mr. Reich, about visiting Mount Pleasant and Royal Oaks. I know you're new to this commission, but I know that there are folks that have been here for a number of years. I remember sitting in this very room 5 years ago asking for a replacement for Royal Oaks, that it was in desperate need. And we were in the middle of a tremendous recession at that time, and we certainly as a community did not have the funds to address that need. That would have been the perfect time to take care of older facilities, because at that time during the recession we were not growing at all, or a very small amount. But now we're picking up again, and we're talking about whether to invest money in a mobile unit to place on a campus that then you would have to, it would be a temporary investment, or whether to make a permanent investment and build a structure within the community. I can tell you that I sat not too far from here 4 or 5 years ago and discussed with the community about building a replacement school at Mount Pleasant. And for various reasons, that idea was not adopted. So I think, again, I think it's misleading to think that you and others made a visit this week and you found these horrible conditions at these schools that we didn't know about and were neglecting. The truth is we've been fighting for those needs many years, and we still continue to this day to fight for those needs. But we also know that those children have a place to go to school today. It might not be the greatest conditions, and I agree with you completely. Our needs are overwhelming. And if there's any one message we have today for you is that we have millions of dollars of needs that you need to address. And we're discussing which order to address them, and we're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, if you would say. And the truth of the matter is, you're going to have to help us pull out of this crisis that we're in, rather than trying to confuse the public and saying they're working over here when they should be working over here, or they have this many seats here when they want to build seats here. That's we need to be true to the cause, and the cause is the fact that, yes, we have older schools, like you have mentioned, that need to be replaced or repaired. We have kids that are moving to this county that do not have a place to go to school, and you're assuming that some charter school is going to swoop in and take care of that need for us. And I'm telling you, as your leader of your educational system, we can't count on that. I can't bank on that. But what I do know is that we have needs. And we're aware of the needs we have, and we're aware of the fact that we're a growing community. And we're here to talk about how we can meet all of those needs, not debate which one we should do first.
I think when people go and see Cox Mill High School and Winkler Middle School and Hickory Ridge High School and Hickory Ridge Middle School, and realize that you spent all of that money on those when you ignored Mount Pleasant, that I very seriously doubt that people will think that you are fighting for those areas.
Well, again, I would take exception to that. The three of the 4 schools you mentioned look very nice. We have provided you with information on the cost of those structures, and that nobody built a cheaper middle school in this state, cheaper than Winkler was, Hickory Ridge was built when it opened. I dare say anybody goes to look at Hickory Ridge High School would say that that's some way over the top school. It's not the same design. I don't know if you meant to include that or not. It's not the same design. It's a CMU structure with a flat roof. Looks like a basic high school that you'd see. It looks just like Robinson. There's nothing flashy about that. Again, I don't know why we continuously come here and beat up the architect and design team and a previous board that built 2 middle schools to a nice standard that did not cost any extra money to the taxpayer from what the pro forma budget was.
But that's my issue. It's not the architecture.
Well,
it was the pro forma budget to start with.
Well,
and when you build,
with all due respect, we're not here to talk about the way that budget. You keep talking about the specifics of that school being glamorous or over the top, and what I'm trying to point out to you is the design of that building. They look nice. There's no question about it. They look nice. The translucent roof you talk about, it's for the daylight. If we use the school 60 years like we've used Royal Oaks, the daylight alone probably paid for the roof. And I dare say we probably will be in there 60 years. Long after all of us are gone, we'll still be using that school with a concrete floor and split-face block. Now, split-face block is cheap building material that looks nice.
That's right.
I want to have a respectful, good, informative conversation, but when we come here and have to defend something that was done 7 years ago, and that's not what this board is here asking you for. We're not asking to build a glamorous, over-the-top school. We're asking you to fund an elementary school to take care of what we paid an outside consultant. These are not our numbers. It's an outside consultant. I understand you guys had the same type of consultant here last night talking about growth in the county. I don't know what those numbers were, but when we look at what our consultant said, the families that currently send their children to Cox Mill and Odell don't deserve to be out in trailers. It's not their problem that there's capacity at a district next door. If they don't want to go there, we may have to be the leader and tell them that they need to, but that's for us to look at a global solution. I don't believe that the Board of Education should usurp its power to do what's right by the students and families of this county, and what we're charged to do is provide that education and opportunity. We're to come here and provide you with the information and what we think it needs to provide, but it's our job to figure out how we're going to get there and how we're going to make sure every child that shows up at our front door gets the proper education that they're supposed to get.
Well, and that's the problem. I don't think the children at Mount Pleasant are getting that proper education. They are really really in very difficult conditions. But I will say,
Did the
you
principal
said you
share that
don't-
with you, that they were not getting I know you met with the principal, did she share that they weren't getting an adequate public education there?
I'm a parent of a child at Mount Pleasant Middle School, and my child, I will state, is getting a great education. I mean, the facility, I agree, has problems, but he is getting a great education.
And let's go back for just a
You didn't give me a chance to respond. Dr. Shepard had interrupted me, but I will say that the evidence does show that you are building a glamorous facility. You spent $29 million inflated adjusted on Winkler. That was for 1,170 students. You have asked us for $26 million for Mount Pleasant Middle School, which is 60% of the students. So
We have not asked you for a dollar amount for Mount Pleasant Middle.
I have got sheets that show 33.4 million, 31 million, and 36 million, and they all came from you. So you have asked us for those things.
No, we haven't. We may provide information and projections until we pass a resolution formally asking you for funding. That's all past information from one board to another. Have we passed a resolution to ask for specifically to replace Mount Pleasant Middle? Madam Chairman, have we asked that of this board?
Here's the list right here. $33.224 million. This is from you from October.
Would you take us to the bond referendum request that we put?
When you came back later, it was $31 million, and now it's $26 million. So,
No, when we came to you formally as a board, in our resolution for a bond referendum, we listed a total dollar amount
There you
and
go.
3 projects.
There you go, right there.
Yeah, there it is. That's what we have formally asked you for. There's not a dollar amount attached to Mount Pleasant Middle. We provide lists all the time. We got lists coming and going. Whatever numbers are on that particular list may be something we're dealing with at that particular time, or whatever the case may be. But I don't think it's fair to muddy the water to say we've been here to ask you for 28-some million dollars for a school when we haven't done that.
well, I've got 3 lists that show what your intent was to spend on Mount Pleasant Middle, and I don't think that the fact that they came from you, I don't think it's being disingenuous to say that your intent was to spend $26 million at that school. So we can agree to disagree on that.
Well, if our intent was to do that, if you add that to the total, the other figure you just gave, what did you say, 29 million?
21 and a half.
When you said 29 million, I think for
Winkler was 29 million.
And so if you add those together, how much does that leave for you then to appropriate for the last few projects there in number 3?
I actually was sitting at your meeting, Dr. Shepard, as you went through those, and it was 47 million, 21 and 47 and a half, and then it left 8.5, I believe, for you were talking about doing a remodel to one of your schools, which turned out to be the Glenn Center, and then you had about $4.5 million, I believe, for general maintenance. So I sat through your meeting. I listened to you come up with these numbers as you came up with them. So I'm not just making these up. I'd be happy to show people if they want to come and see evidence of what you talked about in your meeting. So
Well, our meetings
to
are
act
public.
like you haven't
Hold on a
said these
second.
things.
Our meetings are public, and they're also on television. So what we talked about is a matter of public record.
Yep.
What I don't want to confuse is you specifically stated that we came here and asked you for $28 million to replace Mount Pleasant Middle School. We have not done that. If we come to you and ask for a replacement for Mount Pleasant Middle School, it will be after we do our due diligence to try to figure out. We have recently heard from, got a resolution from the town council that they would like for us to use the current site. Our board would like to go along with that resolution. We have now hired an outside consultant to take a look at what that entails for redoing the school on that site. Once we get that, there was a study done in 2007. Once that gets updated and we make sure that we're okay with that, then we may have a formal resolution for you to ask, a specific dollar amount to replace that school. But until that point, I just don't want to be told that I've asked for something that I haven't asked for. I'm not denying that we have a list that may show one number or another. That's all part of information gathering and information sharing. We try to accommodate you all when you have requests. And again, we've got lists coming and going. What we formally ask you for is a different story, though.
Well, I've got 3 lists and a meeting to show what your intent is, so I don't feel it's disingenuous to talk about what your intent is on that. And so it goes back to saying, you know, what you're proposing to us is to spend tens of millions of dollars to add thousands of students of capacity when you still have 1,000 student capacity, and the children at Mount Pleasant don't have stalls. And I really, if we took stalls out of the bathrooms here, or if we took stalls out of the bathrooms at your education center, those would be fixed by the end of the afternoon. And to keep sending our children back there for years and years to bathrooms that don't have stalls while we build these glamorous facilities, I think is very problematic, and Mount Pleasant Middle School should be the first priority for all of us to get fixed. They've been promised a school for a long time, and they should be our first priority.
There's no stalls in any of the restrooms at Mount Pleasant Middle School?
That's incorrect.
No. There
are stalls there. I don't know which ones don't
Yeah.
have them, but it's not every bathroom.
One set of there's one bathroom with no stalls, and there's another bathroom, a whole set with no doors on the bathroom. And I just don't think that's
Is
acceptable.
it in the field house or actually in the school academic building?
It's in the field house, but what difference does it make?
Well,
We don't have doors on them?
I didn't say it made a difference. I
Yeah.
wanted to know where they were.
A middle school field.
Well, let's talk about the need today. What we come here today for, talk about what y'all need. Let's talk about that.
Well, Mr. Burge, Commissioner Burge, we had 3 resolutions on your work session agenda for January. The first one is for funding for a new elementary school. We have done some due diligence. We have done some site-specific work. We have talked amongst ourselves. We have used Mr. Whitkey's background and professional expertise. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I got involved. I'm a licensed general contractor. So we have worked on what we're trying to accomplish for a new elementary school, and we actually are asking you for $2 million less than what we were asking for before. So we acknowledge that we've already been given $1,500,000 by the county, which was seed money to start some, preliminary pro forma type work, and are now asking for additional funds for the new elementary school of $18,045,538. We have provided you with a detailed sheet showing line items, a schedule of values, if you will. And that's what, I do want to be a little bit careful, and there is still site negotiation going on. So there's items on there that have to do with the site. So we would probably not want to be specific about the site. The other, should we entertain further questions on that? You want me to go on to, there were 2 other reasons why we were here.
Now, let's go ahead and cover all of them while we're
Okay,
here.
the second reason that we came to you was we passed a resolution for staff compensation. I won't bother you with reading the entire resolution. You heard it at the last meeting. We have Kathy Auger here, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, to answer questions about that. Our board felt strongly that we had some money on in our funds to be able to take care of part of the request, and wanted to come to you all for funding for the rest of the request. And then the third reason we were here, as I mentioned previously in talking to Commissioner Osterreich, we passed a resolution asking that you all consider a bond referendum. That has been, our board passed that with a dollar amount on it of $60 million. It is our contention, as I mentioned before, you all have to decide how you want to fund your needs and your schools, but you can't have a bond referendum if we didn't pass a resolution and ask you to consider it, so it's a tool for your toolbox. So that's the 3 reasons we're here today.
We're not going to vote on it today, no way, are we?
That's up to you.
I don't think so.
Do you have
I think
any
we'll wait. I don't
questions
know.
or anything other than? the rehash. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Chris, I think, were you keying up?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. Well, it's, I know that the dynamic between the school board and the county commission board is a very difficult one to achieve, and what is, what we perceive as best and what you guys perceive as best. And it is a fact that, I did go to Mount Pleasant Middle School and took a tour of Mount Pleasant Middle School, Royal Oaks Elementary School, and I was appalled by the conditions. And it is our job to ask these questions, because whenever we give funding to the school system to maintain maintenance, and when I go and I see that there is no stalls by the toilets, I question, where is that maintenance money going? Where is the priorities? And I truly feel in my heart, in my conscience, I cannot vote for a new school whenever the older schools have been overlooked. And simple things is that. And Dr. Shepard, you had mentioned, I'm going to address your comment that, maybe we're trying to confuse the public or what. It's not confusion. This is reality. I've seen it with my eyes. I witnessed it. We have a request for a new school, and you're correct. In that area, it is overcrowded. And it is not realistic that those students can be shipped to Bethel Elementary. It's not going to happen. But there are neighboring schools that are under capacity. So we need to utilize the space that we have. And I can't vote for a brand new school to be built whenever the older ones can't be taken care of. I don't understand the simple things of putting the stalls around the bathrooms. I mean, that should be a given. I just can't understand why that has went so far beyond notice. The principal explained to us that day that there's a student that has irritable bowel syndrome. Well, what is he supposed to do in that situation? In a dressing room of 60 boys that are getting dressed for PE, where's he supposed to use the restroom? In front of the 60 children? That just can't happen. And for, seeing simple things like that, there's just no way that I could vote to build a new school whenever some of these things need to be addressed. And since we're discussing cash for a school, this cash can be used to address a lot of needs. And, I talk to people from Mount Pleasant, and they feel like, I've heard them say, we've been promised a new school for 15 years. And I know that that's, partly a school board fault, partly the county commission fault. I mean, it goes back from both sides, I understand. And, it's been to a problem of funding. And, we can say that, Chair Kiger, you're exactly right, that the school board and the school administration's job is to set these priorities and decide what's best. And you're exactly right. But time and time again, I receive emails from constituents that were directed by your board members to contact the commissioners directly. And many times I'm confused because I say, well, that's the school board's job. We're here to provide you the funds, and you do what thinks best. But why do, for instance, it's sent directly to us. So if someone has an issue with Mount Pleasant Middle School or what, I get the email saying, the school board member, or by word of mouth said, contact the commissioner so we can get a new school there. Well, whenever I hear that, yeah, you haven't made a formal request to us. The school system has not done that, but we're getting requests, and it needs to flow from your board and from the school administration. But we're constantly getting these requests that should be coming to you guys. And like I said, personally, we shouldn't be involved in deciding which schools should be built. But whenever we do get involved, because the community members invite us out to the school for us to see, and then I see this stuff firsthand, I do get concerned. And whenever you have neighboring schools that have the capacity, you have Mount Pleasant that doesn't have the adequate facilities, I just can't support building a new school until we take care of the ones we have.
Well, one thing I think, in fairness to Mr. Whitkey, since his department handles the maintenance and will want to address the stalls, I think you all have put us in a precarious spot, because all of a sudden it looks like we're sitting here defending no stalls at a school. And I guess I don't really appreciate that, because there's not one person sitting here that wants any child to go to a bathroom that doesn't have a stall. So to say that we have consciously made a decision to do one thing at the expense of Mount Pleasant and their stalls, it is certainly not the way that I want our school board to operate, and I don't think our administration will operate that way. There are needs that come up all over the county that we take the funding that you all give us and we do the best that we can. We currently are providing Band-Aids and stitching on arms and legs that have major gouges and bleeding. And all we've got is the ability to stitch it up. And that's what we're doing the best we can, and I'm going to let him respond to that. But I don't want to sit here and act like we're trying to defend what the field house looks like at Mount Pleasant Middle. I've played rec ball out. I mean, my kids have played rec ball out there. It is an old school. But one thing, I was not on the board when it came up previously. There was a lot of discussion between the two boards. The school board room was packed to the gills because the plan was to rebuild Mount Pleasant Middle next to the high school. It would have passed and they would have a new school. The town did not want that at the time. It got defeated. Our current board wants to respect what the town told us at the time and what the current council has asked us to do, which is replace it at the site. Well, time has gone on. The recession hit. We were told we weren't going to build anything for 5 years. And here we are. The school still has not been replaced. Yes, they've been promised a school. I would assume during that conversation, when you're up for a vote and you think you're getting a new school, that's like a promise. But they fought it. Some did, not all, but they fought it and wanted it at that site. Economies crashed, ours crashed, things changed, your funding changed, and here we are sometime later. We do want to replace that school, absolutely. It is something that our board wants to do. Based on the administration's recommendation, our board has embraced looking at the capacity of what we've got without doing a massive redistricting, and would like to do both. We would like to build a new elementary school, and if we have the funds to do it, replace Mount Pleasant Middle School. And Royal Oaks is a whole different conversation. Based on the location and size, I don't think we would want to build a 300-student school again. That doesn't make any economic sense. Mr. Wiki, I'd like, if you would, can you talk about the
Let me
maintenance?
address that real
Sure.
quick before Mr. Wiki speaks. I understand, I respect you, Blake, and that, I don't think that you guys are trying, I'm not trying to put you on the spot to make you defend stallless bathrooms. I think that you're completely unaware of it. That's where I'm concerned that how has that went unnoticed for I don't know how many years. I have no idea how many years. And it's not your job to know. It's impossible for you to be at every facility. But how has that went through a number of years with stallless bathrooms? And I know we keep, bringing that up, but I'm just as shocked as I was that day whenever I go in there and see that. This is just the realities of it. And, that's just, anyway, Lynn.
The reality is that we have less than $1 per square foot to maintain our school facilities every year. I can tell you at the start of every school year, we have many, many, many requests that far exceed our budget. You've seen that in the documents we presented to you. It's not news to you, I'm sure, that we have not been able to do everything we'd like to do. The stall that you're speaking of, it's in the boys' restroom just off of the gymnasium, is a facility that is used by a lot of kids for changing area. For those individuals who need the privacy of a separate place, there is another bathroom immediately adjacent to that room that was not brought to your attention, and that's where that young man is allowed to use the facilities.
The ladies' room didn't have door. They did have stalls, but they just didn't have doors on their stalls.
Yes.
So that's been overlooked as well.
It's a question of priorities at this point.
I feel like that's a strong priority. That's why I get aggravated, because I feel like the priorities need to be listed. The priorities need to be reassessed, and that's why I say that I think Mount Pleasant, Middle School, Royal Oaks Elementary School is a priority over a new school.
I can tell you that we can put stalls in. That's not the point. The point, probably more importantly, is that if a child comes down in a set of crutches or in a wheelchair, they're not, first of all, they can't access that part of the building, but if they do find themselves in that space, they won't be able to use the stalls because they are not ADA required, or ADA appropriate. So we have a lot of things to consider. Do you build something that's not code compliant? It kind of goes against my grain to do that. On the other hand, we can, when people are using that facility, close the partition door and give greater privacy there. I have to point out that last summer was one of the worst years in many years with the amount of rain we had. Large amounts of our budget, our maintenance budget, had to go to repair those so that a lot of children would still be able to go to class rather than have to spend time at home or double up in another classroom. We focused a lot of our funds on keeping the rainwater out and keeping people dry and trying to protect the investment the county has. I'm not denying that there are small problems, and when I say small, I mean financially smaller problems that need to be addressed at schools. Those issues, by the way, were not raised as the highest priority of that school in their annual review. I can tell you that. They did mention it to us. We've seen it before. As I said, we did know that the teachers are making separate accommodations for the individual that you mentioned. And I think that certainly helps in this case. I'm not saying it helps everybody else. And it is something we can take a look at. Actually, we've been talking about the possibility of asking for specifically funds for Mount Pleasant to make the repairs necessary to get them to the point where they'll have a new school to live in. The question about doing elementary school versus the middle school, the elementary school can be built very quickly. The middle school cannot, and that's reality. We can find a virgin site, we can put new elementary school on there in time to have it open by 2015. That is not possible with Mount Pleasant. You have staging. First of all, you can't take down the existing school to build a new one. You have to build it in phases and then demolish as you go. It takes a much longer period of time to do that than building a standalone new virgin site elementary school. And that's why we're really, that plus the whole idea that the Odell School is the fastest growing population area in the county, followed by Cox Mill. Both of those schools exceed their capacities now, and in some cases, even the movement of children from the school to trailers that are at Cox Mill is dangerous. There is no room whatsoever to really expand Odell in its current situation. The sites are too small. So we're really between a rock and a hard place on the elementary side, and that's key because that seems to be what's growing at a fastest rate in the county. The elementary school, as I say, it's not out of our minds at all. We would love to be able to have funds to bring. We have an architect studying the school right now. We'd like to have planning funds to be able to immediately go into design development and construction documents so that when monies are available, we can immediately start bidding the project and going to work on that replacement. But that's not going to happen as quickly as an elementary school. So it's not an easy decision, but the decision is we believe we can provide the elementary school relief we need quickly, and we can also address Mount Pleasant in a timely fashion, but it will take longer than the elementary school.
Lynn, my only concern about that is we really don't need 2,000 students of capacity right now. And so if we build the new elementary school, and then you want to build Royal Oaks to 1,000, that gives us 2,000 students. And again, that puts us up to about 3,200 in terms of total capacity for elementary schools. And we just don't need that much right now. And so we've got to find a way. We really need to replace Royal Oaks. You can't, I mean, I think we would all agree that Royal Oaks is not a school that should be in existence in 5 years. So
Yes.
So we all do agree with that. So if we build this new school, then we just don't need 1,000 students for Royal Oaks. But you know, that's been something I've been talking about with you for months, and every time I talk to somebody about it, they say, no, we need 1,000, we need 1,000, we need 1,000. So let me take a step back. I apologize if I am aggressive towards you. I really don't mean to be. And Blake, you just become chairman. I know that you were not on any of these boards in 2007, Probably your entire school board was not on there in 2007. So this is not your responsibility. I know that 100%. And I don't mean to stick it on you. I really don't. What I really do worry about, though, is we made mistakes in 2009. Think back to that economy. I mean, the economy had just crashed. I mean, the stock market was probably still 6,800 at the time. A lot of people were getting laid off of work, and Winkler Middle School was the school that we built in that economy. That really is a little bit troubling to me. And, you know, I think it was you, Blake, maybe it was Dr. Shepard, said that we are putting Band-Aids on major gouges and bleeding. And the reason that we're putting Band-Aids on major gouges and bleeding right now is because we went and did cosmetic surgery to Winkler Middle School. So if you would have not done cosmetic surgery to Winkler Middle School, you'd have had that money to come back and put it on your major gouges and bleeding. And that has been my point all along, which is we can build schools to a sustainable level without going over the top. And with the money that we save, I want to give it to you. I've got a new plan for you today where I'll give you, I think we're going to have $3.5 million of surplus. I want to give you that too. I want to give you all of the surplus that we have. Keep our reserve and give the school board the surplus that we have, all of it, so that you can go and build new schools. And the only thing that I've ever asked is that we build them to a more reasonable level. And if you look at, now I know that these are old schools, but this is inflation adjusted. So let's look at it. You've got schools like Concord Middle, C.C. Griffin Middle, Harris Road Middle. These schools are perfectly capable. Sure. These schools are perfectly capable of providing an excellent education. And if you look at the inflation adjusted number on those schools, it was $22 million. If you look at the inflation adjusted number on Winkler, it was $29 million. So you're talking about a $7 million difference between those schools. So let's say DPI's changed some and it costs you an additional $2 million. You're still talking about $5 million difference. Now, if you had had that $5 million and instead of putting it into Winkler, you had gone out and put it into Mount Pleasant, or you had gone over to Royal Oaks and put it in there, or maybe you had gone over to Central Cabarrus, we would have so much more functional schools across the board. And that's all that I'm saying. And I'm not really trying to, I genuinely am not trying to come back and second guess people from behind. But you've got to learn from your mistakes in the past. And if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're doomed to repeat them. And what I see now is budgets like $26 million to replace Mount Pleasant Middle School, while Royal Oaks is being ignored, while Central Cabarrus is being ignored. And I don't want to do that. Like I said, you will keep all the money, but just make it go further. That's all that I've ever asked from you.
Well, I don't think anybody would argue with the notion that we want to make our money go as far as we possibly can. The problem is you get to say that, we actually have to provide you with a number. And that's two different things. Whatever number I give you, if you say, well, I just think you need to do better than that, you don't have to define it, and we have to define it. And that's the problem, and that's the rub where that's the gap that we're running into. I guess maybe I just better be prepared to have to defend Winkler and Hickory Ridge every time I come over here. But again, I just don't think it's worth beating up everybody about two schools that came in statistically and on a overall and on a cost per square foot basis cheaper than anybody was doing those schools in the state. And our architect has been hired by other districts based on their design being built in a economical fashion. So we've, again, I guess I'd like to go back to, we're asking you for funding for a new elementary school. If we want to move forward, then that's I guess that's what we want to talk about. I don't think that we're doing anything that's glamorous or over the top. I think we're building solid schools. I don't think we took money out of the pockets of people at Mount Pleasant to build a nice school in the middle of a recession. When the planning started for that school would have been before the crash, when the design started, because it takes that long to get design, get the plans drawn, and get built. So again, I don't like trying. We have to educate everybody in the county when they show up at our door And it's one of the most difficult things that I found when I go and do exactly what you guys did and visit a school. It's like you just want to snap your fingers and say, well, gosh, let's fix that today. Well, you go to every school all day long, you just can't do that. We don't have the funds for that. And we want to design the new schools so that they'll last as long as we possibly can, because we're going to be in them for a long time. And that takes, there's certain budget functions of that. And, you know, I can't imagine doing what Mr. Whitkey and his staff does, where they have to be the ones to go out and tell somebody that they can't fix something because it's either not on that priority or it didn't rank high enough or we just don't have the funds. And we know that the funds are limited, and we do the best that we can do, and we didn't do cosmetic surgery. We are doing Band-Aids. That, again, you know, you and I, maybe somewhere down the road, we'll have coffee or a beer somewhere, and we can talk to the cows come home about Winkler and Hickory Ridge. And you know, to me, that's fun stuff to talk about, because that's my professional livelihood of design features and materials. But as a school board, I just don't think we blew it 5 years ago on 2 middle schools that we built.
Well, I do want to move on to the pay, but you know, one other thing that I would note, you had mentioned that Hickory Ridge is different than Cox Mill. And both of those are older schools. They were 2 years apart. One of them, inflation adjusted, cost $44.7 million. The other one on your list, Cox Mill High School, cost $50.1 million. So that's, again, $6 million more. If we'd have taken that $6 million and put it into something else, we could have done a lot with it. And those are inflation adjusted. That's an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah, yeah. And without going back and doing whatever research was needed at the time and construction costs, again, when you look at a cost per square foot basis of a high school, Cox Mill came in under the state average. So, you know, we did something correct. We were under the state average. So, you know, you're looking at a raw number, an inflation-adjusted number, which does include all of the extras, FF&E and architecture and engineering. That is tax, tag, title, and dealer prep. I mean, that's the number right there. And it's expensive. Nobody's going to deny that. But high schools, when you look at them, they are enormously expensive to build. That's why we, you know, hopefully we don't have to build too many of them.
I want to talk about the salaries. I did find that the LEA sheets, so you could see that they are differentiated between Cabarrus County and Mecklenburg County. If you pass those down, you can see there's both of them there, so you can see that both schools differentiated between the 2 counties, and the numbers that I referenced to you were Cabarrus County only. They were not total. The one thing that I wanted to ask about in terms of salaries is one of the resolutions that was passed by your board was with respect to the low end of this salary study, and it brought all of the people that were below your minimum up to the minimum. So it seemed like there was some firmness with respect to the bottom end of it. And now I could be totally wrong, but it doesn't seem like there's firmness with respect to the top end of it. And, you know, you can tell me, I'm asking you this generally, I don't know, but in looking at your salary study compared with some of the salaries as published by the news media, they have gone exceedingly above the top end max for the same position. And I was curious if you could answer those for me. For instance, Director of Elementary School, your top end is $83,705. And I'm not going to use people's names, but it looks like your director gets paid $91,080. Director of High Schools has the same with $91,080 as a salary. Facilities Management, the Assistant Director, $75,923. Ours actually gets paid $89,562. Chief Finance Officer is $101,744. We have 2 people in that position. We have one making $116,386 and one making $124,370. So, are those numbers from the press? Are those accurate numbers? And I was just curious as to why there's such a firmness to meet the floor, but to not pay as much attention to the ceiling on those things and to overpay by maybe as much as 20%.
I'm sorry, can I ask you something? Do you get those numbers from the Tribune's website?
That's where I got it from.
I will tell you up front that what is posted on the Tribune website for me, because I figured I would get checked, is my husband would like for me to have that amount of money. If you'd like to give me a raise, I would appreciate it. It is nowhere near what I'm making. So there are great discrepancies, and I have shared that with our reporter from the Tribune, that I can tell you on a personal basis that what I have posted on there is not correct at all. And I'm not saying my salary, because I don't fit in any of those upper categories, but I'm just saying, and I don't know where, they can tell you whatever they want to. I can tell you on a personal note.
You have told me that before, and that's why I
know
asked
of
that.
a teacher that's listed at over 100,000 on that website, and I know that's not true either, because we had a big laugh about it. So I'm just to clarify. Okay?
You had told me that before,
I know
and
I
that's
had.
why I asked them that question with deference. Because
That's fine. I just hadn't
would
said
like
it
to know.
publicly, but you and I had said that, and I thought I would just state that. If
Sure.
anybody checks mine, it's wrong.
Sure.
I would be glad to go back and check. I don't have the salary study from me. I don't know the salary of all of our employees, but I'll be glad to look at that. But I think, again, this is, we're shifting the light to the high end when we're here to ask you about something else. So I don't want to, I don't want to be misleading, but we've got a number of teachers that are leaving our district because right now they get paid more to go to other school districts, and we've got to do something to help them. That's what we're here to talk with you about.
Your resolution asks for a raise for the people on the high end as well. You haven't separated out the low end or the high end. It's everybody. So it's relevant what the people on the high end make in relation to your salary scale, I think.
And I agree, and if you'll remember when I sat in this chair last time, I told you that anything that would come my way, I would certainly donate that to our foundation and make sure that this is not about the high end. If you're here today to say you want to do something for a certain set of employees, I will tell you that anything you'll do, if you'll agree to put bathroom stalls at Mount Pleasant today, but we've talked for an hour and a half and we haven't received any of the requests we've asked for, nor have we received anything else on the other end that you've talked about. So let's just agree to what we can do to help our teachers and to help our school system, because the bottom line is our teachers are hurting and they need help, okay?
Would you be willing to withdraw your request for the bond resolution in exchange for a raise for the teachers?
No.
The bond resolution, again, is for you guys to decide whether you want to use it or not. That's totally up to you. Our legal counsel told us that you cannot do it without a request from us. And so that's why we provided you with a tool in your tool belt.
You had said you have no preference whether we give you the money through a bond or through...
I can't
Wait,
sit
can I
here
finish?
Well, you're going to ask me to do something that I can't do, A, outside of a meeting, and B, my board is not in session. So, if you're asking us to pull that away, that's another month before we could even consider it. I think we've waited long enough to get an answer on our requests.
The problem for us is if we do this bond, it is going to spike our debt service payment by $9 million. And I've said this before, I would much prefer money to go into the classroom and give it to the teachers. I'd give the teachers a raise today if you'll withdraw the bond request. But to add $9 million to our budget, we can't give the teachers a raise and then add $9 million to our budget. We don't have the money for that. So we went through all those things today, and we can't do that. So to answer your question, Dr. Shepherd, I'd be happy to do something for your teachers today. I really would be. I'd be thrilled to give them a raise. But until we get this bond situation worked out, then we're not at liberty to do that. If you'd like to get the bond situation worked out with us, I'd be happy to look at it today.
So I want to make sure I'm fully understanding what you're telling me. You want us to sit and wait while you decide amongst yourselves of whether you want to proceed with the bond or not. So our teachers need to wait on that based on what your conversations are going to be about a potential bond referendum. Is that what you're asking us to do?
You told us that you gave us the bond as a tool for our toolbox, as assistance for us. And I'm saying I do not need that tool. I have a different way to fund you. So if you're doing it solely for us, then we'd be happy probably to vote and say we do not need it. We'll find a different way to do it. And if you withdraw the bond because it is just a tool for us, then we would be happy to do that today.
Well, I think you need to talk to your other 4 commissioners. The ball's in your court, not in ours.
I would be happy to address a couple of those things. Commissioner Osterreich decided we would move on to salary discussion, and I never had an opportunity to talk about building discussion. So we'll start there. You know, I ran for county commissioner because I care about my community, and I want to see us. I want to be involved in a process of looking at the big picture down the road, and how we can ensure that this community continues to be a good place to live and work for me, for my children, and my grandchildren going forward. And so I think that we have to look down the road. We have to look at the big picture. Quite frankly, and furthermore, I think that's why all of your board ran for the school board. I think they did it because they truly care about their community. They care about the education that our children are getting. They know how important that is to the future of this county. They know how important good schools and good education is to everything else we do, whether it be attracting new industry and new jobs, economic development, any of those things. I've heard it repeatedly at outside meetings throughout this week, how important education is to the future health of our community. The job, in my opinion, of this board in combination with your board, we have the same goals, and we need to be working towards the same end. You know, you've got a different piece of it, and your piece involves curriculum and lots of other things that I don't know anything about. Our end involves the finance and the providing facilities, those kind of things that maybe you don't know as much about. You personally, Chairman Kiger, have skills in construction that I do not have. And I appreciate that, and I like to benefit from that knowledge. The line of conversation that has occurred here today, I find to be embarrassing, and I apologize for that. You know, I don't think it presents the spirit of why I'm a county commissioner and why I think your school board members serve is to accomplish those common goals. I am not an expert in the area of architecture or construction. I have also visited Mount Pleasant Middle School. I commented on it at our last meeting. If I were bringing a prospective industry into our community to try to encourage them to come here and provide jobs, that is not the place I would take them and show them. You know, I had an opportunity to talk with faculty and staff at that school when I was there. Thinking back, I think I may have seen this restroom situation, but it was quite obvious that there were other adjacent facilities available. To pick that out and make an issue out of it, I think is wrong. I think it conveys the wrong message to the public. You know, I could take the other slant. I could say, Mr. Hickey, why in the world are you spending money putting in new stalls at that school that we've been talking about tearing down and replacing for 5 years? You know, it's going to be gone soon. So, I mean, there are all different ways that you can approach that. You know, I have visited Winkler Middle School that we've talked about quite a bit. I think it's a very nice facility, and I'm very proud that we have it. And I think the students and the faculty there are proud of it as well. I did not see the extravagances. I did not see the glamour. You know, I did take note of the building materials. You know, I looked at the ground concrete floors, which I understand is one of the most inexpensive, durable floors that you can do nowadays. I did notice the split face block, which is also one of the more economical building materials. If I'm wrong, please correct me.
No, you're correct.
And it's very attractive. And that's, you know, the position that I would take on that is, good job. You know, if you can do it within a reasonable price and make it look good, that's what we want. You know, there are others that say, well, that wasn't a reasonable price. You know, so I have asked those questions, some of which you have answered today, that was the least, tell me if I'm wrong, least expensive school per square foot, middle school, built in the state during that time period.
In the previous 5 years.
The previous 5
From
years.
the opening of that school, that's correct.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a gauge to try to determine whether you've been good stewards of money, that would be a pretty good one for me. You know, I could probably, if I wanted to try really hard, I could probably go out and come up with some conflicting information from somewhere else. Somehow or another, I could manage to turn that around if that was my intent, but it's not. You know, we talk about as a result of these conversations that we've had about new schools versus old schools, you know, I've gotten contact from parents at some of the other schools. Hey, what about us? You know, you're talking about replacing this school, and you built a new school here. You know, like you mentioned, there's going to be maintenance issues at every school, and every school is not going to be the brand new one, the most modern, the most up to date. It just doesn't work that way, and it's impossible to do it. But you have a very difficult job, and I appreciate you doing it. And we also have a difficult job, and I think if we work together and cooperate, it makes it a lot easier for both of us to accomplish. Talking about this, the elementary school, the new elementary school. You know, I look at your school construction timeline here, which shows awarding a bid in July, I think, if I'm reading it correctly. That's like tomorrow. Am I seeing that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I know this is tentative and just kind of to get an idea, but the point is, if you're going to stay anywhere near this, then we need to move rapidly. We have been talking about funding an elementary school, a new elementary school, with cash for the entire time that I've been on this board, which has only been about a year and a half. But we've been talking about it all during that time. We had a presentation last night. You know, we're talking about capacity. Here again, we're back to our crystal ball, but the presentation we got last night was based on the residential units that are currently approved in Cabarrus County. The ones that have already been approved by planning and zoning, is that correct? There's the potential of over 17,000 homes being built with the permitting that has occurred. In his presentation, he said the impact of that would be 17,000 lots could generate an additional 5,406 elementary students, 2,363 middle students, and 2,108 high school students. We don't know when that's going to occur. We don't know if that's going to occur. We do know, we can look back at our building permit for this past year, and I think probably most of you saw an article recently in the newspaper. It was a tremendous increase in building activity over the past year. Economists that I've heard from earlier in the week have, and it's been mentioned here a couple times, I think, you know, this area of North Carolina is recovering a little bit more rapidly than some of the other areas. So if you take those signs, there's no reason to believe that that trend is not going to continue, and that these students are going to continue to come. You know, I think those figures I just read out are kind of in line with what I've heard from some of you folks in your projections and predictions. The ORED study if I understood correctly a while ago, this is kind of out of date by a year, maybe. Like some of the numbers of students at some of these schools are actually higher than shows on this report.
It's like a balance sheet. It's a snapshot of the day, the day that the document's presented, yes.
Right. So if you look at the results of that and update them to today, take the information that we were provided last night and by others, then I can't see where we're not going to need additional capacity. You talk about the redistricting issues, and I hate to bring this up, but I know that everybody in this room has seen the turmoil that they're going through in Union County right now over that very same issue. We don't want to be there. We do not want our citizens to be that unhappy. We do not want it to disrupt the educational process in our community. We also don't want to go through the other experience that Union County is going through. We don't want the school board suing the county commissioners and going to court and spending taxpayer dollars on both sides of an issue. That is, if you want to talk about a waste of resources, that is the hugest waste of resources that I've ever seen. And we certainly do not want to find ourselves in that kind of a position. The spirit of some of our discussion today would make me feel we could end up in that predicament, and I certainly hope that never happens. I don't know how to, I wish that I were the guy that could say something that would clear everything up as to some of the differences of thinking that we have, but I'm not. But I have tried to express what I think about it. The issues about the salary issues, as far as what you've requested there, is, in my opinion, in no way, shape, or form connected to the facility issues that you have. And those two conversations, now, it is dollars and cents, and that is important. But, to say that, to use that as a bargaining chip, bond referendum against teacher pay is, in my opinion, depriving the citizens and the voters of Cabarrus County of making that decision. If we decide to have a bond referendum and we put it on the ballot, then every voter in Cabarrus County gets an opportunity to come out and say, yes, I agree, no, I don't, and we will abide with their decision. Definitely. The alternative plan, which, I hope to learn more about that before the day's over, but the one that I see in our material provides for $10 million of cuts out of our current budget this year and every year thereafter in order to make this funding plan, cash for schools, work. I haven't seen how, if we could do that, that'd be great, but I don't see how we can do that without making significant impact on our operations. Bottom line is, we've talked about the elementary school. As far as I'm concerned, I would vote in favor of a motion to proceed ahead with that project today. We have identified the funding. We have the funds available. I think we ought to proceed and get it done. Not sure there would be enough support on the board to do that, but I would certainly be in favor of it. And then you've got, as far as the Mount Pleasant Middle School and Royal Oaks, you've presented a plan as to how to accomplish that as well, or how to go to the citizens and ask if they support accomplishing that. So, I think it's an orderly way to do it, and I think that's the direction that we should head. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think each one of us here, all of us, everybody, each of the commissioners agree that, the teachers should have an increase from the state level and from our supplement increase. They're the most vital part of our education system, and we can discuss the facilities all day long. But, we do, whenever I was in the facilities, one thing I was impressed by is the teachers and the support staff and the community involvement. So they are the most important, and I would like to move forward with that. The problem we have here is that whenever you're talking about, the potential of a bond, raises for the school system employees and a new elementary school, we have to fit all of that in. And that's the next item on our agenda. We have to fit all of that in with everything else into a budget. So, it is simple that we're discussing that one issue now. However, all that has to fit in at the end. So, so I do understand. I was prepared to walk in here and vote on all three of these issues. And as I said, apparently it's been decided that we're not. So, I wanted us to get this, through, accomplished. We, talked about this for a while. I think it's in everybody's best interest to get this moving forward. So whatever that is. So that way we're not, sitting here, having these discussions at every meeting. But apparently there's maybe, I just learned from Mike before we started that apparently I guess there's maybe some legal questions about the bond, so that I was unaware of. So anyway, I'm prepared to move forward and go on, and we can, we could potentially take a vote on the elementary school and the teacher raises today and put the bond off. However, like I said, all of that is encompassed into what we're going to have to discuss next, and that's only three issues of our entire budget. So, it is, I'm not going to say it's a package deal or anything, but it is trying to weigh, what's, we go forward with, full increase with all the teachers, and then we end up with the bond, then we're going to be sitting here holding the bag of how do we pay for that? So I think that's where, that's where the argument is, we can't, I know Commissioner Morris would probably vote for all three of them and move forward, but there has to be, a point where we ask these questions and it all has to, fit together and all has to fit within our budget, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. So, anyway, with that being said, I think there's been enough said, so I don't know how we're going to move on.
Well, we fully understand that you've got questions amongst yourselves to talk about. We would respectfully ask that you consider taking action. You've tabled it once before. I'm hearing discussion that you may table it again, which would mean, we're getting behind on our timeline of when we want to provide seats in August of 2015. I think the bond discussion, that's amongst yourselves between now and November. I don't really care whether you act on that today or not, but the other two pieces, I've got teachers that I'm losing to other counties that we need to account for, and we need to take a step forward to try to help. And we've got seats that we need to provide at the elementary school level that we need to keep on track to make sure that we hit our August 2015 date. And I will be happy to take back to our board, and we'll discuss and pass a resolution and send it to you as quickly as we can, requesting funding to replace Mount Pleasant Middle School.
We have the capacity to make any motions today that anyone so chooses to make. If a motion is to be made concerning the salary increase for the teachers, then I will respectfully ask to be recused from the vote. That is your decision if I'm recused or not. We have a duty to vote on all issues that come before the board unless we have a financial gain, and even if it's with a financial gain, that's still not an automatic. You have to ask. If you don't ask, if you can all four vote and say, no, Liz, you have to vote for it, or you have to vote, you have to cast a vote. Let's not vote for it necessarily. You have to cast a vote. So I would say that, and I'm going to give the county manager a chance to chime in. If you so choose to make a motion, then let me know first that I can officially request the recusal. I had asked at our other meeting that if you want to break it apart, with certified and non-certified, then I would not ask to be recused for the non-certified, because that's not me, but I would just offer that up as a comment. I also would offer up that Mount Pleasant Middle School, as I have said repeatedly for 10 years, has been on the radar. I will say that it's not been the school board's fault. It's been the county commissioner's fault. 5 years when I was on the school board, county commissioner said they didn't have the money. 5 years I've been here, we've said we didn't have the money. If we want to place Mount Pleasant Middle School, we have to find a way to pay for it. Same with Royal Oaks. Same with the new elementary. So I would say that you are not to blame on requesting Mount Pleasant Middle, because I think that lies at our hands. You have to make the ask. We have to come up with a way to pay for it. And I don't think that everybody will agree with me, but I will make the statement. I do believe that historically this has been a pretty stingy board. And I'll just leave it at that. If this was not a stingy board, that tax rate would have been going up every chance we had. And it has not been going up every year and not trying to keep, I mean, we frustrate the daylights out of you guys ever since I've been here. The day that I did the very first budget as a commissioner, the tone has been either the tax rate goes down or it stays where it is. And you've had to be very creative in making cuts over the years to make sure that the rate didn't jump in tough times. And so I appreciate everything that the staff does. I think that we are at a point where we are going to have to make a decision whether we make it today. We are meeting with them next Thursday. I do not want to go through this same exercise next Thursday. I'll be honest with you. I don't think anybody in the room does. Maybe you do. Okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were raising your hand. I mean, I'm just being honest. I think that we have, it's been gone over and over again. Been played on YouTube, I'm sure, plenty of times. And it's time for us to make a decision one way or the other. They have made 3 requests of us, and we need to make a decision. My recommendation will be do something today or do something Thursday. But let's do something before the month of January expires, okay? That would be my request of the 5 of us, and I think that's fair.
And I totally agree. Like I said, but I would like to hear.
Yeah, I was going to let Mike, I know they've been trying to do some checking since the break, and if you want to add something, that'd be great.
Yeah, I will. And
Well, my question was, maybe you can answer it at the same time, was if we chose to approve this salary increase today, as requested by both Kannapolis City Schools and Cabarrus County Schools, I think the increase makes it retroactive to the beginning of this school year, or it begins mid-year, which...
Their request was to make it retroactive. However, you can do it retroactive or you can do it at the new fiscal year.
Right.
I think their preference, since that's what they requested, that's what they would prefer.
Right, and so my question is, if we were to approve it as they have requested it, which would make it retroactive, that would have to come out of our funds that we are talking about using to fund this elementary school. Do we have enough to do both?
Correct me if I'm wrong here.
And if
there is enough.
If there's enough to do both,
But then
it automatically plugs it in, which is our next discussion in next year's budget. Because if you do it now, it would stay there for next year, so it automatically.
Right, but it would,
whichever ones don't have something on that line.
the retroactive piece of it would have to come out of our excess funds in this budget.
And it would automatically, kind of like when with
And then it
Midland
would be
Library.
forever.
Right, like with
Right.
Midland Library, we previously said we were going to do the library, so that's already in here.
Right.
Not to be changed. If
And
we
if I
make a
could-
decision today, it would be in there already for the next budget.
If I could find
So
the
that's
right
how it
page, it
I
says
hope I answered that right.
our, and I've had this conversation with Ann Wilson, I don't remember the answer was, we've got our unassigned fund balance, but that includes our 15% and our contingency funds and so forth. So the figure that I'm looking for is, and I got no less than 20 pages of different ones here. The excess cash that we have accumulated over a period of years that we hope to use to fund this elementary school. Is there enough to fund the elementary school at the level they're requesting and also do the raises retroactively like they've asked?
Okay. All right. Let me clarify this.
Can you put up page 107, Megan? Because that may, and because I had the same question or similar, and I want to make sure if that was the right page to reference based on what Ann presented earlier. So I have it as 107 in my book. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Chairman Kiger, or Dr. Shepard, the number that you are requesting, if it's the elementary school, is 18.5 million?
$18,045,538. But that's taking into account we've already been given $1.5 million.
That's correct.
Yes,
What new money that you need?
Yes. The money we need.
If that's what they decide to vote.
$18,045,538.
Okay, Ann, is that 29.5 available to transfer to capital reserve fund? That would be the amount that we could use to pay for an elementary school, and part of it would be used if the salary was, the requested amount was retroactive for this budget year. Is that correct?
There would be enough, but we would need to.
You come up, I'm sorry, just to make sure we can all hear you well, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not saying that's a perfect number, but is that somewhere close to the right number? Maybe that's a better question.
What we'll do, in essence, especially because it would be affecting this fiscal year, is we would the 29 would cover, obviously, the 18 plus the 3.3. But then probably what we would need to do to get back to our policy, because we're funding one time with recurring, to get back to our policy, we'd be back to one of those plans that said if we did the raise, we would need to cut expenses $1.5 million on an ongoing basis.
And that was my next comment. If you look at D, Plan D, and you tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, B or D.
B or D. I just happen to have D because that was the one that was left on top. Look at the 2015 for D, B or D, okay? The orange shows the 3.323579
right
increase for schools. The red shows a negative, that's, I don't know what page that is. The red shows a negative $1,545,810.
Right.
So by doing the raise now, we would be committing to cut $1.5 million out of the budget somewhere, because that's what that column says. It doesn't have anything in there about a bond in that column. That's just the raise and what we'd have to cut to do the raise. And I want to make sure I read that correctly based on your conversation.
That is correct.
Okay.
What makes it confusing is that one's a one-time and one's a recurring, and that's why it's a little harder to answer.
If we go back to that roughly 29 million, that would be a little over 21, which would leave about 8 million. Six. He's trying to be very specific. I was trying to be general. You're fine.
Yeah, okay.
A little over 8 million of that could go be moved into the capital reserve fund if we chose to move it, or it would just stay right there for getting through the rest of the year without any more questions.
Madam Chairman, I'm looking at this, and one of the problems we continue to have is we've got 4 or 5 major issues, and I guess maybe what we can do is look at our budget and get that squared away this afternoon and figure out the path, and then see how these things fit into that. So I would like to make a motion to table these 3 issues until Thursday.
Okay, yes, sir. I have a motion. Do you want me to get a second first? Before you speak to it? Or ask for a second?
Well, I'll second that, but
So I have a motion and a second, discussion.
Right,
Thank you.
okay. And I'll say, I mean, this shows, I'm in favor of the increase for the school system employees, and I'm putting that out there. I'm committing, to a vote on that. To what level, I'm not sure, but I am committing to that. So, but as you can see, if we, do both of these, we're going to have to cut 1.5 million somewhere in the budget. So I think that we do have some more discussion, and that's,
Excuse me, if we fund
both, the elementary.
If we fund one of these, we're going to have to cut 1.5 million out of the budget. Is that right?
If we
Depends
fund
on which
this-
scenario we look at.
No, if we fund the school salary, we will have to cut in next year's budget in order to make it work.
Right.
If you fund the elementary school, that's money sitting there. That is one-time money for a one-time project.
Right.
Does not affect the five-year plan.
Right.
You can go on with that. We can go on with that and not, if the pleasure is to go on with that, you could go on with that, and it would not impact the rest of our discussions on the budget
So if
and the
we
five-year
approve-
plan.
If we
Okay?
approve the salaries, you're going to have to cut $1.5 million out of the budget to cover it every year from now on. But
Yes.
most specifically next year.
I have another comment, and I will use Winkler just as an example. Winkler was 185,000 square feet for 1,200 students. Just after Winkler was built, and that's probably the reason we talk about 5 years before, McClintock Middle School was built, and it was built for cheaper, and it was for 1,200 students also, and it was 133,000 square feet, so it was 50,000 square feet less. And so the reason that I say that example is because we, as you had mentioned, Chairman Kiger, at our last meeting, we have a moral obligation to build what is absolutely necessary to give our children a sound basic education. So if 50,000 square feet is being built for our middle schools, it's not being built for Mecklenburg County middle schools, then we are doing something more than that. And that's okay that we're doing something more, but I would like to know what that something more is. And so if you could tell me on the new elementary school that you would like to build, what a DPI minimum school looks like, and then add in the options that you would like to build in terms of energy savings, or if you want to do a zero emission school or whatever it is that you want to do, add those in and show those to us so that we can have a list of options and we can say, these options, I think, are more than what a sound basic doctrine is, but they are important, and so we will fund them, and maybe these other ones are not. And if you could do that, I think that would help me to get more in line with what your building numbers are. My biggest concern about this is, we had talked, the most expensive elementary school we've ever built in this county is $17.4 million inflation adjusted. And the board right now is asking for $2 million more than that. And so I would like to see what's contributing to that $2 million increase. And maybe it is absolutely necessary, but I would like to see it, and then we at least can say that we were good stewards with the people's money and we voted for something that was important to them.
Well, I tell you, Madam Chairman, you look like you were getting ready to comment. No, okay. If we're talking, you and I, trying to figure out what we're going to do with a project, that's a reasonable request. Hey, let's take a look at it. What are we going to do? What does it include? The problem I have is the separation of powers between the two boards. We're here to tell you what we think we need to fund a free and adequate public education. If we are in a position where every ad alternate that we've included, or to go through the design phase, and we come and we include you as a partner, and you're in every meeting that we go through to show you each step one by one, you're now an adjunct school board member, and that's not what you were appointed to do. You were appointed to be a county commissioner. And that, to me, there's a line there that in a philosophical debate, we each have our role, and I just want to be respectful of what our role is. I don't begrudge any of you for asking us questions. I don't begrudge any of you for asking hard questions. I think you've asked them, and I think we've answered them, quite frankly. If we want to talk about what we're going to design, we're happy to do it. but we need the funds to go ahead and meet with the architect and meet with the engineer and do the due diligence and do the site work, the other site-specific things that we might need to do to get the ball rolling. Any more than that, and I'm starting to sense that the trust level for us to do our jobs is not there, and I kind of have a problem with that, because I think we can do what we need to do. Many boards before us have performed this function, and many more after us will as well. Our intent is to not overbuild. It's to build something that we want to use and want to educate our children in. We are happy to take the framework that we've got. I can't tell you sitting here today what's driving the $2 million. I can't. I can tell you based on the research that we've done, based on our background and experience. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but that's why we came to the number that we've come to. And what's inside that number, it is incumbent upon us to keep in line, keeping in mind that your board previous to you and our board previous to me worked on design guidelines together. We have a document that has been worked on that shows what Cabarrus County School specs and standards are going to be. It was prepared in 2010. I don't know if it was formally presented to the commissioners. I don't know. That predates my time on the board. But, every 2 years the parties change. And there was a different county manager at the time. Well, he had input on what we were doing. So as we've moved through a couple moving different targets, we've got to consider what we're doing, what the goal is, what that we're trying to do, and present it to you and stay within the framework that you've given us. And right now, we're here to tell you that with the $1.5 million you've already given us, the 1845,538 that we're asking for is what we think we can do to stay in that parameters. I can tell you it probably, it includes a lunchroom with a stage, because that's kind of the way we do elementary schools. So it doesn't have an auditorium. It has a full-size gym because our Parks and Rec department really, really wants us to have a full-size gym because they're full from sun up to sundown on Saturday and after school. So some of the last time we were here, you talked about Weddington Hills and what it costs when we build it, even in inflation-adjusted dollars. It doesn't have a gym that Parks and Rec can use. It's got a small gym that we wouldn't build now because it's a waste of our money. So that's a very long answer to say I want to work with you and answer your questions. I don't want to hold your hand while we're looking at our plans and trying to decide what we're going to build to educate the children of Cabarrus County.
Well, and see, that's my point. We are, instead of focusing on just how can we get as much money going into our classroom as we can, and focusing on our teachers and focusing on our children, we're also doing social policy in terms of, well, we'd like to work with Parks and Rec and build them something. And this is school money. And so what I want to do, and it may be that we do that anyway, but if you're talking about a gym addition that's for the purpose of being used for Parks and Rec, well, that's not for the purpose of educating these children. It's for the purpose of Parks and Rec. Now, you can use it for educating the children, but that's an additional cost. Now, that may be something that we put on you, but when you're talking about a sound basic education and what the minimum standards are, that is not it. So we've just identified one thing that is something above and beyond a sound basic education. Now, maybe we'll decide as a group that that is something that's important to us. But my job as a commissioner is to make sure that I am being as good of a steward with the people's money as I can be. And our obligation as commissioners is to provide you with a facility to do a sound basic education. And so what I've asked you for is information as to what that facility will cost. And then you would like for me to use discretion above and beyond that to fund something more than a sound basic education. And I'm perfectly happy to use that discretion to do that, provided I know what it is and I can make an informed decision about what the additional amenities are that you're asking for above and beyond what a sound basic education is. I'm happy to look at those things. I'm happy to use that discretion. If it makes sense because it melds well with Parks and Rec, maybe we'll do it. If it causes us to unnecessarily borrow, or to spend money at a new elementary school that we could use to put a roof on a school or use to maybe improve Central Cabarrus, maybe we won't do it. But that's a choice that we have to make, because anything above a sound basic education is our discretion, and I have to use my own discretion and my own judgment, and that's my job as county commissioner to do that for the people of Cabarrus County.
Okay, let me stop the discussion, please, because normally when we have a motion and a second, and it is discussion among the commissioners, and it's not your fault. I mean, it's fine for you to have the conversation and everything else, but if we can bring it back to us, we have a motion and we have a second on the floor, which is to table all three of the requests from Cabarrus County Schools until next Thursday, January the 30th at 4 o'clock. I want to be very specific about when we're going to meet in this room, okay? From the commissioners, primarily the two in the middle, do you have any other, both of you guys have commented, that's why I was asking, do you have any extra comments? Either of you?
I'm opposed to the motion to table these items. I think we should discuss them and take action today.
Did you, Larry, you don't have to say how you're going to vote. I'm just, do you have any questions or anything of us? Okay. So all those in favor of tabling, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Motion carries 3-2. The three items are tabled until next Thursday. Okay. If you will, commissioners, 5 minutes, please. Real quick break. Grab you something else to drink. For the behind the scenes, if you want to keep the cameras rolling so you don't have to count me down again, I'm going to start us up at 3 o'clock right on the dot, okay?